Sorry, it's on.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like now to reconvene the meeting and hand over to our legal officer who wishes to make a comment. Thank you.
Hello, sorry, I asked for the adjournment just so that I could ensure, in response to one of the issues raised by the members of the public, that the assessment was carried out on the basis that the building is a grade 2 star listed building. So if all members can please note that the officer's report refers to grade 2, but the assessment carried out by the county was on the correct basis that it is a grade 2 star listed building. That's confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you for that point of clarification. Thank you. With that, I'd like to come back to Councillor Morris's point. I believe now, Christian, you might be able to answer it, or the other officer may be able to answer it in more detail regarding this particular application. Cal, do you want to just remind them of your question, please?
Yes, I was just wanted to follow up really on the 2 points or the 2 rules that were quoted by Mr. Morris of Stockwell Hall about the MPPF and BAS BE12.
I mean, so paragraph 193, 194 deals with the issue of substantial harm. And if you look at the comments we received from our colleagues at Play Services on our historic, what they say is that no objection to such a condition requiring external materials to be submitted for approval upon review of the revised plans which have been submitted dealing with the roof lights have been removed to the southeast elevation. Essex County Council do not consider the proposals detract from the harm, do not consider the proposals detract from or harm the significance of listed building at Stockwell Hall. The blank southeast elevation should be retained. Thus, the proposal will preserve the setting of the heritage asset, and the views of Stockwell Hall onto the application site will not be impacted. Thus, harm is not considered to have been caused by the proposal in line with the guidance set in NPPF. So that's the test. So we looked at paragraph 193 in the NPPF, and basically it was considered that there was no harm at that point. So that's the test you look at, and then we look at the our general design policy, which is then set out by the officer in the report, that basically makes a similar assessment of using policy BE12. And if you read the design comments at page 82 from the officer, that deals with that point there.
Okay. He mentioned that he believes that the roof line of Barn Cottage will be raised by 60%.
I think the position, the case was on the line. Thomas, I thought it was 60 centimetres.
It's 70 centimetres being raised by.
So it's not raised by 60%, it's raised by just under, well, not just over half a metre. So, well, almost a metre. Let's say almost a metre. I'm not going to start arguing over what's a metre. So there is a. So it's not 70%. It's the roof line. The roof has gone up, but there is already a quite heavy pitched roof on that elevation anyway. So again, you have to look at that substantial harm position, and that's why we did seek that point of clarification from our heritage consultants. And actually there is a similar report with the application that makes this from the applicant side that actually has a similar impact on the heritage impact of that development through that process as well.
Okay, I just wanted those particular points that have been raised to be addressed. Thank you.
Do you have any other points, Carol, that you wanted to raise before we go to the vote? I'll just clarify that. Okay, thank you. I'll just clarify that no other councillor wishes to speak. I can see Councillor Rimmer has now raised his hand. Councillor Rimmer, do you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was just on what the head of planning just said. So I think she accidentally, and I'd say accidentally, misspoke, because she said substantial harm, but actually it's about substantial benefit outweighing any harm, isn't it? Because that was the point. But in the test was whether there was some harm and it wasn't mitigated by substantial benefits. So I think that I stress that because I would like members to vote on the basis that what the test is, that any harm versus substantial benefit. That's what we're voting on.
potential, I mean, what the NPPF sets out is that when considering the impact of a proposed development on the significance of a designated asset, great weight should be given to the asset's conservation, and more importantly, asset, the greater the weight should be. This is irrespective of whether any potential harm amounts to substantial harm, total loss, or less substantial harm to its significance. And then it carries on, any harm or loss of significance of a designated asset from its alterations or destruction or from development within its setting, this is the point, this is the development of this setting, should require clear and convincing justification, substantial harm of loss of the grade 2 asset itself, which is, we're not losing an asset here, or assets of the high significance, and we're not losing an asset of significance. So we've looked at the weight, where a proposed development will lead to substantial harm, which is not in this case. So we're not looking at substantial harm.
Councillor Rimmer, you may come back if you've got another point you want to raise with the officers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just confused because obviously in the report it is not talking about substantial harm being the reason that the decision was revoked. It was mentioned that previously some harm had been shown.
Yeah, and we hadn't dealt with it.
So I think that's the test. Is there some harm that hasn't been outweighed by substantial benefit? So I think that's the test, isn't it?
And that was where
what is being pulled up on.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor. But has that harm, as outlined, has that now been mitigated, Christine?
Yes, it has, and that's we had to we got the applicants following discussions to remove the window openings and the dormers that face the listed building. And that was the harm as outlined in the judicial review, and that's why it came back to us. Well, that's how we addressed the challenges from the judicial review and quashed the decision, because we hadn't attracted the correct weight to set out the NPPF. That's why we lost it. We lost the judicial review. We then took an application back and we went through the pre-app process, and we addressed the harm caused by the development with the applicant, and that the harm caused by the development was the window openings that faced the listed asset, and those were not taken forward in the application. So therefore the harm caused by the development was addressed by the removal of those additional openings and dormers that faced the heritage asset. That is correct, isn't it, Charles?
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. Yeah, so the key issue was the removal of the windows facing the listed building. So they've now been removed, and therefore that's enabled Essex County Council, who are our historic advisors, to say that the harm is now not caused, and the proposals are in line with the NPPF.
So the previous harm was highlighted as being those dormer windows in the previous application. In the new application that we have before us tonight, those dormer windows don't exist.
That's correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. To be clear, yes, we're not comparing like with like. Councillor Turner, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Did we specifically ask Essex about the roof height, the extra 70 centimetres, and they're saying that that's okay?
That was all part of the process. So we unpicked. So like you quite rightly said, Councillor Turner, is that you start afresh. So we started afresh with the application, and we looked at where the harm was, and then from that a decision was made based on that the harm position, and that was then we get to an application that was then considered acceptable. And I think the legal. And
we've got our legal officer wants to come in. Do you want to come back in? Thank you.
So the response, so Essex County Council have reviewed the application that has been submitted again, and they have looked at it, and their position is there is no harm. Yep. And therefore we're not looking at the same test that we were looking at the last application, because the position from the County Council is that there is no harm. Yep. So then the assessment doesn't even go on.
Thanks, but
thank you.
The point I'm trying to get, yeah, thanks for that. I understand that, but the point I'm trying to get to is in tearing this apart, looking back on it, I'm not convinced that Essex have said the roof height is or is not. They haven't specifically said the roof height is not an issue. So what I'm trying to get at is, was that factored into their decision? Because okay, they've talked about the dormers and the overlooking and all that good stuff, and that's been mitigated. Incidentally, we haven't got a condition on that for them to put that back. I don't know if that matters, but you can think about that. But what I'm trying to say is, have they gone to a position where in all of this melee, they've just taken it, well, that application that they submitted was based on the original building. And of course it wasn't, because the roof height has started to move. And I don't think that Essex have, under any circumstances, said they agree with the roof height. It's just that the windows have been taken out and therefore it's okay.
Can we have some clarification around, my understanding is this is a brand new application submitted to Essex to look at and start from scratch, not looking at what was there before and how that might or might not be mitigated. But that's the position, the officers have taken that through the process. But the application, when given to Essex to look at, is a brand new application from scratch, and they will look at all aspects of the plans. Is that correct?
Essex didn't see the original plans?
Kristen, do you want to just give some clarification?
So to meet the test set out the NPPF, to get the correct advice, and the correct advice which set out in the report from our heritage experts, and that's what they are, heritage experts, is they have to look at the whole development. So what they looked at initially, so this, during the life of this application we've got in front of us, the application was submitted with actually and the county council came back and commented on that application based on the roof height, the ridge height, and also the windows in the elevation. So they looked at all matters, and that's how we've ended up with the application we're now seeking to approve, is that all those issues have been looked at, and now we've got to a case where an application is suitable because it meets the issue of substantial harm not being, there's no substantial harm now with this development going forward in its impact on the adjacent listed building. So that's what we've got to in terms of the application. So all matters were looked at, Councillor Turner, because that's what we have to do, because otherwise we'll be back in the room looking at for the judicial review based on our decision making. So the application is looked at afresh. You learn from the judicial review is that you've made a mistake, you have to put it right. So we've had to go back and look at the application from the beginnings again, and that is looking at the building itself now, and then the building with the alterations to it. Otherwise we end up back where we were before, challenging our decision making process.
Okay, thank you.
To be clear, the height of the building has been looked at.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else, Phil, you wanted to ask?
No, that's it, thank you.
Okay. Any other councillors wishing to comment on this before we take it to the vote? Okay. I'd ask councillors now to unmute themselves so we can take this to a vote, please. Thank you. I vote in favour of the recommendation with the conditions as outlined in the report. Councillor McGeorge?
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Morris?
Against.
Councillor Turner?
Against.
Councillor Rimmer?
Against.
Councillor Kettle?
Abstain.
And Councillor Adairn?
In favour.
Okay, so therefore I need to take that to, and that's 3-3 and 1 abstention, is that correct? So therefore we need to come to the chair's casting vote, and I vote in favour. Thank you. With that, planning permission has been granted, conditional planning permission as outlined in the report. Thank you. That is our last item this evening, I believe. Thank you all for attending, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much.